So first of all, I'm just going to go through very quickly the different awards and kind of give you a very brief summary of them. AQA is the most commonly studied core maths award, and they have a common paper 1, which has the compulsory content in it apart from critical analysis. And then in paper 2, the first questions, couple of questions are based on critical analysis, and they're the same across the 3 papers. And then there's optional content you choose. So you choose A, B, or C. And it just really depends on, your students and your own interests as well. So again, A is probably the most common, and then B, and then C. And A goes quite well with geography, psychology, those kinds of subjects. B goes quite well with business students, and C is quite good for science as well. But, there's lots of freedom if you do have the time. So, it doesn't have to align directly. There should be freedom there to work with those other subject teachers and to really make core maths kind of work for you as a school. It's nice, we find, to hear from current core maths teachers who are choosing these different ones and why they've gone for it. So this is a teacher that we spoke to. So that's kind of, reiterating what I said there about, they feel like it supports their students, particularly biology and psychology in this case. AQA also has quite a strong focus on personal finance, which can be quite popular with students and also teachers. Quite a lot of teachers have said, oh, I never even knew how tax worked. That's interesting. So that can be really valuable and quite a strong selling point as well if you speak to parents. Okay, so next we're going to look at Edexcel. Edexcel is a little bit different in that there is no optional content. So we have no choice, which I suppose is good in a way if you're not sure which one to choose. And there is quite a strong focus on making the most of the pre-release material. So all core maths awards come with some preliminary material, a bit like if you were studying English and you got a book in advance to spend a bit of time really getting to know that, so you were more prepared when you go into the exam. That core maths has those, and they're released at varying times, but from about a month before the exam to a couple of months. And Edexcel really makes the most of those contexts and bases quite a lot of the questions around those contexts, which can be really useful for the student because they can immerse themselves in that before the exam. Also, it's not interesting to note that Spearman's rank is in Edexcel, which is useful because it is in geography, psychology, and biology as well. There's less personal there isn't really as personal finance in Edexcel, but again, it could be taught, when you were teaching some of the other mathematical skills, you could just teach it in the context of finance. So there's no reason why you can't do that as well. And this is what a teacher said is why they chose Edexcel. The comment at the bottom here is about the fact that students are expected to use formula, and for example, to calculate standard deviation, they're expected to use summary statistics, which is different to other awards in which they're more encouraged to make the most of their calculator really, and more spend the time kind of reflecting on what that actually is informing us of. Next, we'll move on to OCR, and OCR has actually 2 different options you can choose, Core Maths A or Core Maths B. Both of these papers have Intro to Quantitative Reasoning, which is the first paper, and these are some of the content of those. In the second paper for Core Maths A, there is a critical maths paper. It's got some Fermi estimation in it. We'll see some questions a bit like that as well when we look at promoting this to students. And fallacies and statistics. So kind of really about looking at what's going on around us, what's going on in the media, and like really kind of questioning what we see and, making sense of the world around you. This is what an OCR teacher said to us. So some of these resources that they're referring to come from the MEI critical maths resources, and they've got, they've been tried and tested, and they're really, really popular, and they're great in that they really get students to discuss things and get really passionate about, but the maths is almost doesn't seem at the forefront. It's really strong, but they're discussing this issue, and they don't really almost realize how much maths they're doing, if that makes sense. Core Maths B, like I said, they've got the same paper 1. And then the second paper is all about, some serious challenging statistical analysis is going on here. And you are provided with a large data set to work with throughout the course, just like, you are with A-level. And also it's worth noting chi-squared is in this one, because it is also in other subjects. So, they would be quite pleased to know that that was being covered within your course as well. And this is what the teacher said about B. So it's worth noting that if students do go on to do social science at university, there are quite a lot of skills that they would develop in this, and particularly, heavy confidence with spreadsheets can be really, really valuable when they go to university. We've spoken to HE representatives who've said that, often they will go and work for charities and they can't afford, statistical software, and they expect to use spreadsheets, and sometimes they have never used them and have no sense of how to use them. So it can be really, really valuable to have. And finally, we've got NCFE Maths for Everyday Life. And this is a new course. This is new for 2020. So the exam would have been the first exam in 2020. And it's been designed more with vocational students in mind. So you can have a look here at the general topics that are covered. But I think what's interesting about it is that there are 3 different choices, and they're all set in a particular context. So we have one that's health-based, one that's business-based, and one that's engineering. And so that might be really good if you're, if you're working with vocational students, because they might feel then it was really applicable to the course that they were taking. And this is what a teacher said about this. So, reading between the lines as well, sometimes it could be sort of implied that perhaps, it could be seen as part of their whole course. It wouldn't be necessarily an optional thing. This would be something that they would automatically already study if they were taking a particular BTEC.